Alright guys, it is Friday. Yesterday I had you complete an CIVICS game and just take a look at the vocab. Today we're actually going to get into it for Chapter 9, Local Government. Now this is a brief video. We are going to cover sections 1 through 4, but in our textbook there's not much to it. Our objectives for today, or hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be able to identify the different units of local government. You'll be able to discuss the differences in municipalities, and you'll also be able to explain how governments work together. And remember that word municipality. If you looked over the vocab, you should know that it's just a unit of local government. Now let's get started with our bell ringer. I do have 3 for you today, and the first one is a slight review. 1. Explain how the state's executive and judicial branches are set up. So think back to our last couple videos. 2. Which level of government do you think impacts your life the most? And the last one, number 3. How do you guys see the federal, state, and local governments working together? Take some time to think about it. What are some things that you've noticed that all of them collaborate? Let me know what you think, and let's get started. First, let's look at how local governments are established. If you remember from our last video, states actually have the power to set up local governments. States use their constitution to both legalize and define their local governments. These local governments are made up into municipalities. It is a unit of government, and these units of government are created by the state, and these municipalities would have some autonomy. To give you some examples of municipalities, you can think city, town, village, and even boroughs. You can argue and be technical about the differences, but for the most part, a lot of it has to do with the size. So when you think municipality, you think city, town, borough, and so on. I did make the point at the start of this slide to say that probably some of the things that you see the most, and maybe you're impacted the most, have to do with local government. The argument is that many of your daily services and conveniences come from your local government. For instance, you have your local police, you have state police, or maybe it's safe to say that local police will be more visible than the state police. You expect your local roads to be taken care of. You expect trash to be collected. You hope to have electricity and even running water. You as students and citizens hope that our community is safe and efficient. All this has to do with local government. You know, it's not exclusive to local government. There's still overlap with the state and federal government. Other examples of what you might see and what the impacts might be include firefighters, sewage maintenance, water conservation, snow removal, maintaining sidewalks, keeping records, maintaining recreational areas, street cleaning, and even offering transportation. And the duties of local governments, such as our local government, are usually outlined in state-approved charters because, once again, the local government does become created and get its power from the states, and they do it through a charter. A charter, if you remember, is a basic plan of local government. So it would include the municipality, no matter how big or small. It does lay out the municipality's powers, its responsibilities, and even organization of the local government. So once again, charter is just the plan of the local government. It sets it up, just like the state constitution is a plan of the state government, just like the Constitution is the plan and lays out our federal government. Same thing with the charter. And the whole job of the local government is to just take care of their people and make communities better places to live. To make this happen, local lawmakers can pass ordinances. And if you remember from the reading, an ordinance is just a regulation, sort of like a law, that would govern the community. Ordinances, just like anything else, can't go against the state constitution, cannot go against the federal constitution, and they can't break federal or state law. So there's things that the state cover and that the federal government cover, but then whatever they don't, that's up for local governments to decide. So these ordinances, these local regulations would impact you, and police have to enforce them. And police would also enforce state laws. Some examples of ordinances might have to do with zoning, something to do with safety, perhaps a curfew, building regulations. Many beaches have ordinances that you can't actually drive there. But in general, and again, it's just a local law that governs the community. So there's a lot of things it could be. One large duty for the local government is actually conducting the elections. Local governments have to follow state guidelines, supervise the voting process, provide citizens with polling places. Those are just places to vote. And without this, we won't be able to vote on any officials. This is one of many examples of what local government do. Remember, local governments are established from the states. They have the power to do it, and they do it through charters. Municipalities, once again, is just a unit of local government, like a city or a town or other divisions based on size, based on populations. It depends on your definition of these things. Counties tend to be the largest division of state government, but it always depends. You could have Northumberland County with our population, and if you contrast to, let's say, like a New York City or a Philadelphia or a Pittsburgh, those cities might be a lot larger. So I apologize I don't have like a universal definition for you guys, and I don't have a cookie cutter population or land size for you. A lot of these definitions are a little fluid, but by and large, counties tend to be the largest divisions of local government. Counties, just like all the other divisions in government, carry out laws, collect taxes, and supervise elections. In a few other places in our country, counties would be called parishes or even boroughs. Counties provide a lot of services for us, and this would include healthcare, police protection, welfare, corrections, recreational areas, and even libraries. All of those would be examples of public services we get from counties. To give you a better picture of our country's units of local government, or you could, instead of saying units of local government, you could just say municipalities. Our country would have over 90,000 local governments, including over 16,000 townships, over 19,000 cities, over 3,000 counties, close to 40,000 special districts, and then almost 13,000 independent school districts. In Pennsylvania, we have 67 counties, almost 1,600 townships, close to 1,000 boroughs, and 56 cities. Now let's look at how local governments are organized, or at least for counties. County boards, and these are the members that run the government, are elected by voters and form the legislative body, so they would be the ones making the laws. Sometimes the county board is known as the Board of Commissioners. That's what we would have in Northumberland County where we live. Sometimes they're called the county court, and sometimes they're just called the county supervisors. Again, they serve as a legislative body. So that means these board members for the county can pass laws that have to do with health, that have to do with safety, and they can even make laws that impact real estate taxes, sales taxes, and even personal property taxes. County governments do have an executive body though. It's usually not a single leader, and it's usually several people that voters select. This title might be called a county executive or maybe a county manager. With these titles, typically county executives are selected by voters, while county managers are selected by county board. So some are elected by people, some are elected by people that were elected. The lawmaking body. Some of the other county officials include the sheriff, who usually commands just a couple deputies and some office staff and carry out orders of the county courts. There are a couple other elected officials in counties as well. This includes a county clerk that keeps records of the actions and decisions of the county board. They also help with a ton of different records. We also have county treasurers, county auditors, and even county prosecutors. Now let's move on to the next slide. So I did say before that I don't have these great definitions for you, or some sort of number for population or land size that will tell you what a town is or what a city is and how they differ from counties and so on. But I'm going to do my best to break down each unit of local government or each municipality. We can start with towns. Towns typically have small populations. What that number is, I can't quite tell you. Towns are run by elected leaders, such as town managers, and many towns also operate with town meetings. Town meetings are utilized regularly to handle issues and even elections. Ordinary people give their opinions and even vote to solve these issues. Typically, citizens select 3 to 5 individuals to manage their town's affairs, and as you might guess, the smaller the town is, the less services they probably provide, but the more involved citizens might be. Towns with bigger populations would have more services because they would need that, but citizens may have less power in what goes on. Pennsylvania does only have one town. I did not mention this when I went over the municipalities in Pennsylvania, and our one town is, where I'm at right now, Bloomsburg. The next municipality is townships, such as Cole Township, where our school is located. My hideous definition for this is that a township is a division of a county or a unit of local government that's usually bigger than a town, but not always. Isn't that annoying? Townships are very common in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Townships are led by an elected chairperson or a supervisor, and as your book states, their role includes maintaining roads, maintaining schools, and assisting the poor. Obviously, this list goes beyond that, but it's what all the different forms of government are doing for you. When townships were first created in our country, they did have a strict definition that it was 6 miles by 6 miles, but it's totally different now. If I ever ask you a question on a test or a worksheet, what you should know is that a township is usually bigger than a town. In townships, citizens elect a board of commissioners or trustees that make rules and regulations. Many times villages and boroughs are synonymous, but not all the time. And if you haven't closed this video for now, thank you for continuing to listen. And villages and boroughs are typically created when populations grow too large and organization is needed. Typically, and you'll like this because I can kind of give you a better answer than I've been giving you, it's typically when a population reaches around 200 or 300. That's when our state government will say, okay, well maybe we got to step in and actually set something official up. Villages and boroughs are governed by small councils or even a board of trustees. Voters select these people and even select an executive for many of these cases, or even sometimes the title might be the president of the board of trustees. If and when villages and boroughs population keeps growing and it gets too large, they can become a larger municipality. So maybe the title changes from borough to city. And from a quick review that we've already heard in this video, that would become possible with a charter. So we'll move on to another slide, and the last municipality I'm going to go over, not the end of the video, but the last municipality I'm going to cover, cities. Cities are larger municipalities and sometimes the largest, and while they have large populations such as Philadelphia or Pittsburgh, they also have huge governments, which would provide a ton of public services. So these governments do a lot with education, with health, with safety, with transportation and sanitation, with water supply, with fire and fire protection, with police. So these governments do provide a lot of jobs and are pretty large. For example, New York City has 9,000 sanitation workers. The Los Angeles Police Department have almost 13,000 employees. I told you before, counties are larger sometimes, but then sometimes cities are gigantic in their area and in their population. Like New York City would have over 8 million people. But then another city in Pennsylvania, Parker, has probably less than 800 people. And if I didn't stress it before, the Pennsylvania state government is the one that creates this charter and organizes it. But now more and more, cities are trying to get what they call home rule. This would allow our city officials to write our own charter. Now, when cities are granted home rule, they have to write the charter, but then voters have to approve it. And before I wrap up all these units of local government, I'd like to provide some sort of visual that might help you, even though all these definitions could mean different things. Cities tend to be the biggest, then you have towns that are pretty big, but not that big yet. Then you have villages and boroughs, which are typically the smallest. Alright, almost done, I promise, and I'm going to go kind of fast at this point, because I know this video is dragging on. Let's look at city governments. A few ways cities are governed include mayor-council governments, commission governments, and also council-manager governments. The mayor-council government allows the mayor to prepare the budget, propose laws, and appoint officials. The mayor for this one is very similar to the governor for our state or the president for our national government, but the city council, sort of like the state congress or our national congress, is the one that actually passes the laws and actually approves appointments from the executive. Cities can have what we call weak mayor plans or strong mayor plans, and as you could guess, that means that there's a difference in how much power the mayor would have. For a weak mayor plan, the council has more power versus strong mayor plan, where it's the opposite. Commission governments have a board, so several people that pass laws and carry out the functions of government. Instead of having a mayor that might be the executive, you'd have several people that would be in charge of police, public works, fire departments, and so on. They pass laws and they carry it out. Most commissions have 3 or even as many as 9 people that are supposed to work together to do these things. The last city government is called a council-manager government. This uses city councils to pass laws and appoint a manager that proposes laws and appoints other heads. Manager versus mayor has a very similar role, but voters would have less say. And to sum it all up, in a question for you, you can answer for bonus points. Which style of city government do you think is the best? Or which one do you think Schmokin should have? Should we have a commission and a mayor? Should the mayor have a lot of power? A little bit of power? Should we have a board of trustees? Should we just have 9 commissioners? Or should we just have a council that would just pick the manager or the executive for us? What do you think would be the best? And one last thing before we move on, whatever type of government a city has all depends on its charter. Remember, that's just the plan of that local government. Last slide, let's look at how all these different divisions in government work together. The federal system sets up the local, state, and federal governments and their defined powers for efficiency. For starters, each level must obey the Constitution. Remember, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So even though we have our ordinances, we have our state constitution, you have whatever else, it can never, ever, ever go against the Constitution. All these divisions in government work together on so many different things. This includes schools and education, roads, standards for businesses, jobs, taxes, laws, and so many other things. Airports, ambulance services, animal shelters, art galleries, cemeteries, fire protection, environmental protection, forest protection, historic preservation, jails, law enforcement, a ton of public services such as for mental health public health, housing, public schools, youth detention facilities, and other social services. And if you played that iCivics game, you should have got a grasp on some of it as well. Another way that governments are supported include grants. Different grants include a grant and aid, which are federal funds given to the state for a specific project. And the other type of grant is called a block grant. This is money given to, let's say, a state or a unit of local government, such as, let's say, a city like Shamokin. And this money is given to Shamokin, and then they decide what to do with it. So the difference, a grant and aid, they give us money, but then they tell us what we have to use it for specifically. But then a block grant, they just give us money, and then we decide how to use it. And this would serve as another way how governments work together and how local governments or even state governments are supported. All right, we did it. We made it through. Thanks for bearing with me. Let's finish up with the review questions. 1. What are the different units of local government? Can you list the ones that we've gone over? 2. Describe some ways that the governments work together. That is all I have for you. We will be moving on to political parties and their platforms and even having you take political spectrum tests, and that's always interesting. So we will end on a good note. Let me know if you want to see an online version of the textbook or if you need any other in-depth examples or explanations on this stuff. Answer our questions in Google Forms and let me know if you need anything. Thanks. Bye.